Hey everybody, Phil Smy here again, in a different location, coming to you from an undisclosed location, as they like to say. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've been recently fooling around with WordPress plugins, and I wanted to have a WordPress plugin that hit a Ruby on Rails backend. And I wanted to do that using GraphQL, but I wanted to make sure that the users were logged in and registered and everything like that. So I'm going to be using Rails 7's has secure password and built-in Rails authentication methods. I'm doing all of that with GraphQL. So let's take a look, and this is going to be part one right now. Let's make the Rails application. So how do we get started? In a bit of a different setup here. So let's make a directory called WordPress connector and get into that directory. So we're going to make a regular Rails app. Just going to call this WordPress connector, backend. We're not going to use any CSS, anything fancy like that. We're going to use SQLite. I've recently discovered how cool SQLite is. So we're going to do that. We're just going to turn off the tests for now. So let's fire that up. And we're using Rails 7.1. It'll do all the good stuff for us. Maybe make this a little teensy bit smaller. Here we go. So let's get in there and add the stuff that we want. First, we're going to add GraphQL, and yeah, let's do that first. And we're going to add GraphQL, which is GraphQL Rails, which gives us this cool little sandbox that we can hit while we're developing, and we'll do that in group development. And while we're here, we'll just run the GraphQL installer. Let's just do it, all the stuff we need. Let's add .env Rails. We'll put that in development and test, even though we're not doing tests. And bundle add annotate in group development. Annotate is this cool gem that will put comments at the top of your file telling you what columns you got in the database and everything like that. And it'll do it automatically if you run annotate install. I think we're good to go. So let's go to Code Insiders and open this thing up. All right, let's update now. There we go. So here we are. We need to move this one in a little bit. So let's close you, and what do we need to do? Go to the gem file. Because we're using the built-in has secure password, as this comment says, use active model has secure password, uncomment that, and we'll need to run bundle again. Sorry, I realized I moved a bit too wide. Okay, so we bundled that. And we're good to go. So let's start making some things. As I said, we're going to have the user, and the user has to be registered and logged in and all that stuff like that. So we're going to create a user, and all we need is the email and a password digest. No longer do we need all kinds of other columns. We're going to create that, and we're going to do a Rails DB create db setup. I think that's what we do. And I guess we didn't even need DB migrate. Okay. And let's generate the GraphQL object for that user as well. So there we go. Pretty much done all the command line stuff, so let's go over. I did just restart this already. Let's do that later. Let's try one more time, see if it restarts. Is it going to actually restart? Never trust a button that says restart update. There we are. Okay. So let's take, we got, what do we get? Commit log, whatever. So let's go over and take a look at the user. This got, see, this is the stuff that Annotate puts in, which is very handy. Which I like that. It's cool. So we can do has secure password. Oh, come on. We don't need that. We're going to check that the email is there, present, it's true, and I'm not going to do that. And we'll do a normalizes. Another new thing that I love. Email. With, I don't know what it's thinking there. And we'll just take email, we'll strip, and downcase. That way, whenever anyone signs up, if they use, crazy case or camel case or whatever, it'll downcase everything and compare it and make sure that they're only in the database one time. And so what we're going to be using for all of this authentication stuff is not what Copilot thinks. We're going to be using generate token. And the way it works, if you've seen my course, which I highly recommend, about Ruby on Rails 7.1 and Stable Diffusion, where we go more in depth about creating users like this, we're going to have a API access token. And the way we'll kind of trigger that, not trigger, qualify that is by using the password salt. So whenever the password changes, and we're not going to build in the change password and everything, you could do that. But if the password were to change, then this API access token would change and people would no longer be able to use it. So it's a cool way of doing some security. So this access token that we're going to create will only be valid for the length of, for as long as the password is the same. We can do other things, like expires in, and have it, only good for an hour or a day or whatever. But for our purposes, this is pretty much fine. And now we can get into the GraphQL goodness. So let's look at user type. And we're going to add, we're never going to want to send this stuff around, but let's add a new field. And we're going to call that a API access token. Don't forget that. It cannot be null. And the way that this, if you've seen my other video about GraphQL, you'll know that the way that this thing works is that you can create methods that are unique to the GraphQL. So we can, instead of putting methods on the object, we can put methods on the GraphQL. And what we will do is generate a token for API access. And incredibly, that's pretty much it. I'm really flying today. We're going to get rid of all this stuff. And we will do a field of user so we can get back only a single user. And it'll be a user type. It can be null and find user. Ooh, I wanted to do that. Find user, and we are not going to do it by ID. The argument is going to be a token, and it will be a string, and it will by access token. And so that's the field definition. And then what we need to do is just define the user. Oh, I hate when I do that inflection. Just do this and just do that. It's not just, it's pretty complicated, all this stuff. If you're doing this kind of thing, honestly, you're probably in the top 10% of Rails developers anyway. So good for you. I always think we sometimes shortchange ourselves. Writing software is a non-trivial thing. Literally billions of people on this earth cannot even do what we're doing right here. Even just copying good old Phil. So there we go. That's all done. And if we run this, let's try Rails S. And we can go over now to port 3000 here. We got the Rails thing, which you can't see all of it. Dun, da, da, da. So we have that, right? So we know we're running Rails 713, and we can then take a look at the GraphQL, which is kind of, I don't know why it remembers that. Actually, what I'm going to do is change the port, because I think it does it by remembering the port. So let's, is it port like that? Yeah, it is. How about that? I remembered something. Here we go. I could have cleared the cookies, but this is better. So GraphQL, as it says, is an in-browser tool for writing, validating, and testing GraphQL queries. GraphQL, along with SQLite, is something I'm really getting into recently. So we can just type our queries in here. And get some stuff, prettifying and whatever. So we can run let's query, and we can call it find user, and do that. And if we run it, it has no selections. So let's quickly do the selections. That's funny. Yeah, we can say user, and we can say token of A, B, C, D, E. Get the ID, and we don't find anything because we have no users, So it has searched for it. Let's clear that, run it again. Go over. Oh yeah, maybe I'll delete all this stuff because it does unfortunately send it. Let's put that just at the bottom. Okay, so let's try that again. Send it over. We can see that, we've sent that stuff. Here's the query, and it hasn't actually found anything. So, and it returns a null. So let's start by creating the user. Let's add the ability to do that. So we want to create a mutation. And you can do all of this stuff from the command line, which is pretty cool, I think. I like doing this kind of using these generators. So we can create a mutation. And you can even say you want a mutation that will create an object. And in this case, it's going to create a user. And it'll go off and do all the stuff for you. That's what I like. Because you know how horrible I am at typing. So if we go and look at our mutations now, here's the user create mutation. It writes all of this stuff for us. It's not exactly right for what our purposes are. And it puts something into mutation type, I think. Yeah, there's it creates a user. Get rid of this, as it says. User create mutation. So it's registered all the things that we need to do. And then finally, what's neat, I'm using this mostly, I'm going to use this mostly for illustration. I personally wouldn't do it like this in this case, but you can have an input. Where is it? Not query type. If we go and look at the user create mutation, it takes an input type of user input type. And so you can kind of type safe your GraphQL queries. I know people are going to freak out that I just said that because it's not quite right. But so we can say GraphQL. So we're using another generator to create this input type. And so again, you can just say user, and you can say what kind of strings or what kind of fields do we want to pass in to this input type. And notice the capital S here. If you use a lowercase s, it doesn't see it as the GraphQL object. So what we're saying is our input types, we want to use all the standard input types of a user, and then we also want to add in a password. So now we have user input types. And it's got all of these things. And you know what? We're never going to want to search by ID. And we're never going to want search by password or created or anything, digest or anything. We only probably will ever want to search by email and password. So there, we've done it all. Let's get rid of this and let's create a mutation called create user. And we will call that user create, I know backwards, but to make you happier, let's see, create a user. So we're going to call user create, which is this migration here, mutation, sorry, here. And we need to pass in all mutations take an input. And in this case, it is a type of user input. So we can see a bit more, it's for the introspection, so you'll be able to figure that out. So we can say an email. Let's do my test at test.com, and let's do a password. The password that I love, Phil Smy123. And then just when it returns, for the sake of argument, let's see the ID. Let's run it, and it's created a user. If we go and look, there, insert into user. How easy was that? So it's created a user with that password. We didn't have to do hardly anything. I mean, that's the beauty of generators if they're written right and code standards. And so if we just go into the console here, just to prove it to you, because I know you're saying, Phil, did I really do it? There we go. And now, if we save that into here, and we can say generate token for API access. And you see, there's a token. So it's nice that you can do that in the console, but what about this? Well, if we had said here, API access token. And let's make a new user. Test01. There it is. How cool is that? So it's returned us our API access token. If we run this again, we're going to say email's already been taken. Because it's just doing a create. So there we go. We've created the user, and it creates the access token and all the rest of that stuff. So now let's do something. Now that we've kind of got the basics of creating users and everything, that was easy in GraphQL. Let's do something else. And what I want my plugin, because remember we're doing a WordPress plugin, what I want my plugin to do is use OpenAI, ChatGPT, to create a blog post for my WordPress site. So that's the thing I'm going to be giving you today. So, how do we do this? You ask, and I ask myself. So, first let's create we need a model. I'm going to create a model here. Let's close. We're going to use a plain old Ruby object. We're not going to save anything into the database. So let's just do class. And magic content. It's not active record base. It's just a plain old Ruby object. For now, we'll just do it like that. And let's now create the GraphQL part. GraphQL, mutation. We're going to create magic content. There we go. It's got a magic content create mutation. Where are you? Here's our mutations. We got a magic content create, which goes off, creates the thing for magic content, and it should have put even into the mutation type. We now have magic content create mutation type, and there we go. You can also create an input type, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. What does magic content do? So what my vision is for this plugin is that we have keywords, or we use the term keywords, but we actually mean key phrase. So we have some keywords that we're going to pass in. We're going to save those. And then we're going to create content. And I'm not going to type this because you guys have seen me type. So we're going to do all this stuff. We're going to go off to OpenAI, and we're going to have a prompt, and then we'll write out the response just for the sake of it, and then we're going to save that response. And we know from experience that the response from OpenAI is there. And then the last thing we need is to create the prompt, generate a blog post about, not quite right, generate a blog post focused on the SEO keywords of, good God, that. There we go. So this is all good, but it's OpenAI. We forgot to add the OpenAI stuff. So let's do a bundle, add Ruby OpenAI, which is the OpenAI gem. And we'll create a config initializer, OpenAI.rb, and this is just, sets up the token. And what I'm going to do is just move this off screen for a moment. And I'm going to put the token into my .env file. So it's that. And yeah, looks something like that. I'm just going to move it off screen so I can put in my real token. Back in a second. All right. So I have the real token in there now. And we have an initializer. And now this actually should work. So if we fire up the console again, I hope this is in any way valuable. Magic content. Do we have it? Yes. New. And we're going to say keywords. How to paint a deck. No. Yeah, whatever. So we're going to just, here's the magic content, and then let's create some content. And hopefully what it's doing is going off into the ether and talking to ChatGPT and saying, ChatGPT, this guy wants to know how to paint a deck. That's one of the most Canadian prompts I could think of. I am in Canada, as you can tell from the wood panel. There we go, and it's gone off. It's gone off, and here's our result. And if we say mc.content, I think we get, yeah, there we are. There's the title, Mastering the Art of Refreshing Your Outdoor Space, How to Paint a Deck. So this works. So now, all we need to do, he says, is tie it in with GraphQL. So we don't really need that anymore. What's it? We don't need some documentation. Looks good to me. So let's go to this, and I've decided not, this time I'm not going to do an input type or whatever. We know we only need keywords, right? Maybe in the future you do something else, string. So we're going to just call that keywords, and keywords, magic content, and we're not doing it at all like that. So what we want to do, where are you? Huh. Magic content, create content, and magic content dot content. We can do that. We can raise an exception if if magic content fails or something like that. If we don't get anything back. And pass it back. And so now, let's create another mutation here. Mutation, create content. And, oops. So we want magic content create, is that it? Input, keywords, how long to grow tomatoes? No, what's the best crop for my spring garden? And it will return content and content. And it doesn't return content, it returns magic content. I feel like I'm not doing that quite right. But I think I might be. Well, we should be doing that, that's for sure. It looks kind of right. So now we can say create content, and we're still looking for that. Magic content type. That's funny. My field creates a magic content type, user type. I wonder why it didn't create a magic content type. I think because it's not active record. So let's just grab user type. We'll call it magic content type. We don't need anything except it's going to return content. I think that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to restart. Oh, I definitely need to restart. There we go, it's going off. It's taking its time, so it must be doing something. There we go. So we have the content, that's done. So now the only issue is, where's all this authorization? Why did we do all that stuff with the access keys? So what we're going to do is now you can only have users that are registered do this. And how do we do that? Go here and good. So let's go to the application controller and write a couple utility methods. Def authorized token, which is going to just yank it out of the headers. Actually, that's not the way I like to do it. I like to do it like this because there, sorry. So we're going to get the header, authorization header, and unless it's there and it starts with bearer, then we're going to split, because the way that this header works is a header of authorization, and it's got a string that's bearer, starts with bearer, and then the actual token. So we're splitting it on the bearer there, and we'll grab the last part. And the other thing we want to do is set up a current user. I like that. It's like the I don't know what it's thinking of that. It's kind of like devise. Return. Oh, we did that already. Unless authorized token. And then what we want to do is find by token for API access. Right? API access and the authorized token. So that will find us the user and return it in current user. And because we're doing this on the application controller, we can use it pretty much anywhere. So for instance, in the GraphQL. So GraphQL, they know you're going to be using users, so they have a kind of hint here. So we just need to uncomment this line. Current user is current user. Current user, again, of course, is getting here from the application controller. So we're now in the context, writing the current user. So if somebody has made a call with the authorization header, current user will return a user. Otherwise, it'll be null. And it's going to pass it down the line, this context, down the line to other things. And so then we can go into Magic Content Create. And we're just simply going to say, if you're not signed in, then please go away. And we simply, he says, put this in. I'm not going to type it because you guys know. So you must be logged in to perform this action unless there is a current user in the context. That's all we need to do. And watch. Now, if I try to do this, you must be logged in to perform this action. So I don't want to go through the idea of creating another user. We don't have to create a user every time we want to get this stupid access token. So let's find a way to retrieve it. And what I like to do is double up on the user create. So we're going to go to user create. And here we're going to do essentially create or find. I guess it's find or create. So what we'll do, the user, we're going to find by the email if user input email. And if we don't find it, then we're going to do the user new. And this is a bit cool here. So you're saying, well, they're both going to return a user. How are we knowing what we're doing here? So we say if the user has been persisted. In other words, it's already been saved, because notice we're doing a find by here and we're doing a new. We haven't saved it, right? We save it over here. So if the user persisted, and so we will not do that. We're going to raise an error, not that error though. This else. So invalid email or password if we cannot authenticate the user with the password that they've passed in. Otherwise, raise this error if we can't save it. And end. And then just pass the user back. Simple, he says. Let's give it a try. So we know that that's my user. So we're going to call user create with the right password. Okay, so we should get back, first of all, we should be able to look at the log and see if we create a user. User ID 2. We knew it was 2. It just selected users. And so there's the access token. Now to prove it to you, I'm going to do that. And oh my gosh, invalid email or password. So there we go. We've got a method, user create, a mutation, in GraphQL that will actually either create a user or log a user in. So now I can, why did I hit save? I'm in a browser, dummy. Let's create a user. There's my access token. Now remember, right now I can't run this. You must be logged in. So we can go to headers. Now headers are, remember we're just doing this right now to demonstrate. Bearer space token. And I think that's it. So if you want, and I'm sure you do, I'm going to put some logging in here. We'll look for user. And now we've got some headers. I can do this, create some content, and it's going off and doing something. And look at what authorized token is that. We'll look for a user. So it seems like everything is working. So I'm just going to let this run just so we can find out again how to antique a desk. And then I'm going to take a little break, and maybe later or tomorrow I'll record the second half of this video where we write a quick and dirty little WordPress plugin that will hook into this. And then it's all yours. Hey guys, so what I decided to do, I was going to do this great big long video. And instead what I've decided to do is break it into 2 videos. This is the video that you've just seen that deals with all the Ruby on Rails side and the GraphQL and everything like that, and creating a service that listens. And now I'm going to do another video that will do the WordPress PHP plugin that talks to this Ruby on Rails backend. To be honest, it was taking so long to do the WordPress plugin, I thought it's better to split it in 2. So stay tuned for another video and we'll take a look at that.